Long ago, in the ancient city of Babylon, there was a time when the streets were full of life. Markets were busy, temples were bright with firelight, and the city was known for its wealth and beauty. But that peace did not last. One night, something strange began to happen. It started with small signs, scratching sounds inside walls, shadows moving in corners where no one stood. People ignored it at first. Then the plague came. Rats began to appear in unbelievable numbers. At first, they were just a nuisance, but soon they took over everything. They ate the grain stores, they destroyed food, they spread sickness. The people of Babylon began to live in fear. The city guards tried everything. Traps were set, poison was used, fires were lit in the streets, but nothing worked. The rats only grew stronger. Panic spread through the city. The king ordered his soldiers to solve the problem, but even the army failed. For the first time, Babylon felt powerless. Then, one evening, a stranger arrived at the city gates. He wore a strange, worn-out cloak filled with colors faded by dust and time. In his hand, he carried a simple wooden flute. He did not say where he came from. He did not say who he was. He only said one thing: "I can free this city." The king was desperate. He agreed to listen. The stranger made a deal. "If I remove every rat from Babylon, you will give me gold." The king accepted immediately. That night, the stranger walked into the center of the city. He raised his flute to his lips, and he began to play. The sound was not like any music the people had ever heard. It was not happy. It was not sad. It was something deeper, something that pulled at the mind. At first, nothing happened. Then, from the dark corners of the city, the rats began to appear. Hundreds of them, thousands. They came from every direction, drawn to the sound. The stranger walked forward slowly, and the rats followed him, out of the city gates, toward the river. The people watched in shock as the entire plague moved like one living shadow. When he reached the river, the rats followed him straight into the water. One by one, they disappeared beneath the waves, until none were left. Silence returned to Babylon. For the first time in weeks, the city was free. The people celebrated, they cheered, they believed the nightmare was over. But the stranger did not smile. He turned and walked back to the city. He went to the palace to collect his reward. But the king had changed his mind. "You have done nothing but play a flute," the king said. "That is not worth the gold we promised." The courtiers laughed. The guards stepped forward. The stranger stood still. His eyes grew cold. "You broke your promise," he said quietly. "There will be a price for this." The king dismissed him. "Leave this city," the guards ordered, and the stranger was thrown out. That night, Babylon became silent again. Too silent. And far away, in the darkness beyond the city walls, a faint sound of a flute could be heard once more. The night after the stranger was thrown out of the palace, Babylon slept under an unusual silence. No rats moved through the streets anymore. The city felt clean again, safe again. The people believed they had survived a great curse. But deep inside the city walls, something darker was already beginning. Just before sunrise, the first child disappeared. A small boy, no older than 7, woke up in his home. He heard something outside his window. A sound, soft, distant, familiar.
a flute. He stood up slowly, walked to the door, and stepped outside without waking anyone. He was never seen again. At first, no one noticed. One missing child in a large city was easy to ignore. But then it happened again and again. Children began to leave their homes in the early hours of the morning. No crying, no struggle, no fear. Only silence and the sound of the flute. By midday, panic spread through the city. Parents ran through the streets calling their children's names. Guards searched every alley. Doors were locked, but it made no difference. The children were simply gone. That evening, a mother ran into the palace screaming, "My son is missing! Please help me!" Then another voice, and another. Soon the throne room was filled with desperate parents. The king ordered his soldiers to find answers immediately, but no one could explain what was happening, until one guard spoke in a trembling voice. "I heard music in the eastern streets before the children disappeared." The king froze. The stranger. That night, fear returned to Babylon, stronger than before. The king ordered every gate to be closed. No one was allowed to enter or leave the city. Soldiers guarded every street, but the flute did not stop. At midnight, it returned, soft at first, then clearer, then closer. From beyond the eastern gate, the sound drifted through the air like a living thing. Every guard on the wall felt it. Something inside them wanted to move, to follow, to obey. And then it happened. The eastern gate opened. No one knew who opened it or how, but it opened, and the flute began to play louder. In the streets, children appeared again, one by one, from their homes, from behind doors, from shadows and stairways. They walked without fear, their eyes calm, as if they were dreaming. Parents tried to stop them. They grabbed their arms. They cried. They begged. But the children did not listen. They followed the sound, through the streets of Babylon, out of the city gates, toward the darkness beyond. The king stood on the palace balcony, watching in horror. He finally understood. This was not a man. This was punishment, and it was too late to stop it. One of the ministers fell to his knees. "We must pay him, bring him back, give him whatever he wants." But the king's pride was already broken, and yet the children were already far beyond the walls, walking into the night, following the flute, never looking back. By dawn, Babylon was quiet again, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of emptiness, because the children were gone, all of them, and somewhere far away, beyond the mountains, the flute was still playing.
Babylon did not feel like a city anymore. It felt empty. The streets were still there. The houses still stood. The palace still rose high above the walls. But the soul of the city was gone. Parents wandered through the silent roads, calling names that would never answer again. Some cried until they had no voice left. Others simply sat in the dust, staring at nothing. The king no longer spoke in the throne room. He only sat, frozen, repeating the same thought over and over again. It was just a man. It was just a flute. But deep down, he knew the truth. Days passed, then weeks. There were no signs of the children, no trace, no message, nothing. And yet, one night, something returned. A sound, very faint at first, almost like a memory. A flute. The king rose from his chair immediately.
"This is not possible," he whispered. But it was. The sound was coming from outside the palace gates. The entire city seemed to hold its breath. Then the stranger appeared again, standing at the edge of the royal courtyard. His cloak was the same, his flute was the same, but his eyes were no longer human in any way that could be explained. They held something ancient, something final. The guards raised their weapons, but no one moved forward. The king stepped down from his throne, his voice shaking. "You have taken enough," he said. "What do you want?" The stranger looked at him silently for a long moment. Then he spoke. "You broke your promise." The king lowered his head. "I was wrong. I will give you gold, silver, anything. Just return them." For the first time, the stranger smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "It is not about gold anymore." A heavy silence fell over the palace. The king's voice broke. "Then what do you want?" The stranger turned his gaze toward the empty city beyond the palace walls. "Something you will never get back." The wind stopped. Even the torches seemed to dim. The king fell to his knees. "I beg you, they were only children." For a moment, something flickered in the stranger's expression. Not anger, not joy. Something colder, final. He lifted the flute to his lips, and he played. But this time the sound was different. It was deeper than before, stronger, more absolute. The entire city heard it at once, and far away, beyond mountains, beyond rivers, beyond time, the children heard it too. One by one they stopped walking. They turned, and they began to return, not to the city, but to him. Parents rushed into the streets one last time, screaming their names, but the children did not respond. They were already gone again, walking into the horizon, following the sound that controlled everything. The king collapsed completely. The stranger lowered the flute and spoke one final time. "You do not break promises to people like me." Then he turned away and walked into the darkness. The flute faded slowly until there was nothing left. No sound, no children, no hope. Only Babylon, empty forever, and the price of a broken promise.